Good afternoon, folks. Um, Here I am back again, going to tell a few more tales that happened to me when I was younger. I told you last time about Bigfoot. That was all true. I've got a bunch of things I need to get out and speak about. Like I said, I'm getting old in life, and I'm thinking I've got a grandson now, and it's going to be 10, 15 years, I'm sure, before he has any children that can recognize Grandpa. And I'm not so sure I'm going to be around then. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to come up with a record of a lot of things that I've done over the years. And some of my son doesn't know, but my daughter, and leave a record they can sit back and look at. And they all know Papa's a little loony, maybe. So this is going to confirm it. But also, there's going to be a record of a lot of things that took place in my life that I maybe never got around telling them, but now they can sit back and look at it. So tonight, I'm going to do a short story about 4 different things, I think. One will be flying, the other will be drinking, then fire, and then Never Never Land, like the fairyland. So if you don't want to hear all this here, just don't listen to it. Because they're really doing this for the family years later, so they'll have a record of it. And if y'all won't listen to it, fine. But it is what it is. And I'm kind of starting back when I was younger, and as time goes along, as these stories will keep coming out, I'll get older, and there'll be a lot different. Might be a little bit more interested. But right now, this takes place again back, 4.5, 5-year-old also, living in a different house, still living with the grandfather, and I was out in the yard one day and playing around, a little kid by myself. I had a younger brother who was about a year old at that time. He couldn't get out and do anything, but so I was to run around out in the yard, do my own thing. And out in the back of the yard, on the back side of the property, I run across a crow that had died, or maybe it was a raven. It was a big black bird anyway, and it had been laying out there for weeks evidently, and still stunk, but basically all the meat was gone. Just a skeleton still had feathers on it, but it still had odor too. Anyway, I was sitting there looking at it. I was standing there looking at this thing, and a crow went by, and it went by it. It hollered out, and I'm looking at that crow flying by. I thought, it's a shame we can't fly too. I said, if I had wings like him, I could fly. And I looked down at that crow, and I thought, all that crow does is flap its wings, and the wind blowing through it flaps, so I bet does it for him. I said, if I had them wings on me, I could probably fly too. This is a 4 or 5-year-old kid. So I'll run back to the house and get some twine that Grandpa had, and come back out there, and I break off them wings off this crow, and I tie them up with twine, and I wrap it around my shoulders and my neck, my chest. I wrap it all around me, and I can't really see back over what they're doing. I try to shake them, and they don't seem to do anything. I said, Dad, Brennan, I need to get some height. If I was up a little higher, and I jumped off a ladder or something, I bet I could fly. So I get looking around over there at the back of the house. Grandpa, for some reason, had an old ladder leaning up against the side of the house. And I guess the eave on the edge was only about 8.5, 9 foot up. Well, that's a long ways for a 4-year-old kid, 5-year-old kid. But I looked up there and I said, I bet if I got up on top of that house and jumped off, I bet these wings would start flapping and I could fly just like a bird. Well, I went over and I climbed up on that thing. Let me tell you, 9 foot, 8.5, whatever, that's way up there for a 4 or 5-year-old kid that ain't never climbed anything. So I got up there and I got on the side of the roof, and I'm looking, and boy, it's a long way down there. And I don't really have the nerves to think about it. And I got up here, I got to do something. I know I can fly. If I just jump off. But it's kind of hard to talk yourself into jumping. But anyway, I finally convinced myself, I got to try it one time anyway. And I jumped off the side of the house. Let me tell you, this is up around Marietta, South Carolina. We have red clay up there. And that clay is as hard as concrete. I hit that ground, and I thought I was dead. Well, no, I didn't think I was dead because I knew it, because I was in too much pain. And for a 5-year-old kid, I guarantee you I was putting on a good show of screaming because I was screaming my lungs out when I got my breath back. And after I got my breath back and realized I was still alive, I made up my mind. For some reason, I don't know why, but man wasn't made to fly. And I did try them crow wings again. So there ended my flying episode. Well, just a short time after that, we were living with my grandfather. Now, my grandfather was he was a logger. I told you that earlier. And he was a small man. He probably wasn't 5'6", didn't weigh probably 135, 140 pounds. But he was a wiry old man. You know, he was strong for a little man. But him and his buddies, they drank a lot. You know, he never come home drunk. I never saw that. But he was always drinking. He always had a drink with him. So they sat around, they talked, joked around the old big old fire out in the backyard. Well, I went in the kitchen and I was fooling around one evening, and up under the sink, he must have had 15 bottles under there that he had drank in his liquor. He didn't drink beer. They were liquor bottles. And every one of them had a little drop in it. And I got to think, you know what Papa drinks out there? It makes him a man. I want to be a man too. So I go over there and I get all them bottles and I pour them in one little bitty cup. And I keep pouring them. And I finally ended up probably a shot full of liquor. Here's a 5-year-old, 4.5-year-old kid. And I said, boy, it smelled good. It smelled like dang alcohol. But I said, well, Papa drinks it. It's good. And I downed that sucker. Well, when I downed it, I tried to take it all in one swallow. Well, it went down, but it came right back out as fast as it went down. It burnt me a hole slapped through my body. I bet I burnt holes through the floor when it came out my feet. That was the strongest stuff. Lord, that was awful. And I don't drink. All my life, I just don't drink any kind of liquor, beer, liquor of anything. I do, about the strongest thing I drink is Mountain Dew. And I guess that's where I developed the habit of not liking any kind of alcohol. You might like it, but son, I realized when I was a 4-year-old, it wasn't for me. So there's the liquor that come into my life and went out of my life. A couple weeks later, my grandfather was there, and it was a rainy day. I can remember that because it was cold and rainy. And he come in the house and he went back into his bedroom. And I went back there playing around with my papa. And had old big old bed, tick bed, big old duck feathers. And that bed must have been that thick. When you get on it, you just disappear inside it. And I get up on the bed and I'm bouncing around, jumping on it. And he's standing at the foot of the bed, backed up against a big old fire in the fireplace. And he'd been outside and he had wool clothing on. And had on, I remember the green pants he had on. And he was standing there with his hands behind his back, and he's kind of rocking back and forth. And he's laughing at me because I'm jumping around acting like crazy. And he said, now, son, he said, now, Papa's cold. He said, now, he was backed up that fire, and you could see steam just boiling off him, soaking wet pants. And he said, this old fire feels good. He said, but now, if I get too close to this fire, these old pants catch on fire now. He said, you reach over there and you pull that little thing out and you put this fire out. You hear me? Don't you forget. Well, he no more than said that, and poof, his right leg went up in flame. Ooh. Well, all I could do was just start bawling and laughing. Because he was dancing around trying to put that fire out. It was hilarious. I mean, he got the fire out. Of course, he had a big hole in the pants, but he got the fire out. And that was the fire part I was going to tell you about. Now we're going to deal with the thing that's really unusual. This room here, I was in, his bedroom. Right to the left there, he had a closet. The closet had a regular door. When you opened it up, it was probably 18 inches deep. It wasn't very deep. Probably 4 foot across. Small closet. And up head high, he had a shelf that he put the old wool hats on. Laid hats up there. Well, I had noticed looking in that closet, because it was out of my reach up there, that shelf. But above that shelf, about so much more, there was a little door that had, I guess it was just a little trap door there that you could push out of the way to get into what we call the attic. And I'm real curious. I'm always getting in trouble with something. So anyway, weeks later, I was in there fooling around, and I seen that attic. And I knew that I wasn't supposed to be up there. And I'm trying to think, how can I get up there and get in that attic? I just had to see what was in it. And house had a low ceiling. It really was. You couldn't have stood up in the attic if you got up there, but still you could get up there and you could crawl across, or you could sit down up there. But that's about it if you got in it. So I got to think. I said, well, if I pulled a chair over here, got on the chair, stood up on the chair, reached up, grabbed that shelf, pulled up myself up on that shelf, and then sit on that shelf, because I was a little bitty boy, and then pushed that door out of the way, I could get up in that attic. And that's exactly what I did. And my mother and my grandmother, they were back in the house. I could hear them. You need to understand, in this bedroom where this closet was at, on the other side of the closet was the living room for the house. And the living room was probably about 12 by 12, something like that, in diameter. And I knew where the living room was. I knew that if you banged on the door, if you banged on that closet wall, somebody in the living room would bang right back at you, because it was just walls separated. So I got up in the attic. I stood up on the shelf, and there's little rafters there, and there's no light up there to pull. But the light coming up from the room I was in was lighting up the area around for a short distance, 3 or 4 rafters out. You could see the rafters. Then it got real pitch black. You couldn't see hardly anything. So I get up there and I put my hands on one rafter and I get my knees out on the other, and I reach out and I feel the other one, and I pull myself up there, put my knees on that one, I pull myself, and I get about 4 rafters over. And then by then, I really can't see what I'm putting my hands on. I just can feel the rafter, and I know I got my hands on it. And a weird thing happens. And I told you that Never Never Land. Let me tell you why. One of my friends, a good friend of mine, years ago, they was talking about, and I told him this story, and he laughed and laughed and laughed. He said, Donnie, you saw Never Never Land, like Captain Hook, and Peter Pan. And I didn't think it's funny, but that's what he said. And it stuck ever since then. He's always asked me, tell somebody about Never Never Land. Well, it wasn't Never Never Land, but it was weird, and I can't explain it, but it did happen. Why? I have no idea. And if you'd imagine somebody's memory or imagination, you can imagine a lot of things that didn't really happen. All kind of things, but when you imagine something, there's usually a reason. Monsters, or, wealth, or fun, like games you want to play or something. You can imagine all these things. But for someone to imagine this was totally crazy. And I didn't imagine this. This is what I saw. Anyway, when I got out on about the 4th rafter, I seen it was pitch black around me. But just in front of me on the next rafter, I could see a glow coming up, like a flashlight shining up. It didn't light anything else, but you could tell the air was kind of, you could just see a little bit of a glow in that area right there. I said, well, something's shining up. So I just reached out, got on the rafter, pulled myself to that glowy area. Well, what I done, when I got there, I was able to look over the rafter straight down. And where I should have been is exactly maybe 2 foot out over the living room. Because the living room was right there. When I went up to that closet, when I added the first rafter, I should have been over the living room. Well, I'm looking down, and it's the dangest thing you ever saw. There was 4 walls. 4 walls, black. Black is the ace of spades, but not like walls like something painted. It's like if you look into space, if you was in outer space and you stepped out in space, everything around you is black except way off these stars. But everything's black, jet black, because there's nothing there. You can reach out, but you can't touch anything because it's nothing there, but it's black. Well, that's what this was like. There was 4 walls, and they've come to a perfect corner, 4 corners, and probably 8 foot tall, whatever, straight down. But I could look down them, and they were just black, nothing, straight down. And I thought, at the bottom of it, this is what's weird. It was the floor, it was like 4 walls around a perfectly level floor. And that floor was about 3 inches, maybe 2.5 inches high in grass. Green grass. The most beautiful, luscious grass you ever laid eyes on. Perfectly cut, beautiful. And this glowing bright green, bright yellow, white light was coming up through the grass. And it lit the grass up. Made it beautiful. But 4 or 5-year-old kid doesn't dream about grass? I mean, there's nothing horrible about grass. There's nothing you want to dream about grass. As a matter of fact, we didn't have no lawnmower or push mower. All we ever had was dirt yards. We didn't even have grass. I never seen a yard of grass, maybe on the side of the road, but never on a yard. Because you just didn't have it. So where'd this come from? I have no idea. But I would look down in there, and it was beautiful. I just wanted to get down there and put my hands in that grass and feel it and see what it was. But I kept looking around. I said, there's no way down in there. There's no walls. I mean, it's black, but it's not something you can touch. And I said, if I jump down in there, which I was contemplating, it was about an 8-foot drop probably. I said, how am I going to get out of that thing? Because there's no way to climb back out. And I was thinking that very thought right then. I said, how would I get out of this thing? And I'm still looking, and it's just beautiful. And about that time, I hear my grandmother, Donnie, Donnie. I said, oh, crap. Because I knew if they find I'm up in that attic, I'm dead meat. So I just start backing up. And I real quick back up to the hole, drop down in the hole, grab that little door, set it back down. And I'm still on that shelf. And as I turn around, my grandmother comes around the corner. Boy, she said, oh, she jumped on me. Jerked my little butt off out there. I didn't have to worry about climbing down that chair. And I commenced to getting a little butt whooping. She was scared I was going to get hurt, fall, kill myself. So she thought I was getting ready to go up in it. She didn't know I'd got in there. And I was dang sure wasn't going to tell her what I'd been up there and saw. So I got my butt busted. And shortly thereafter we moved. And just weird. My friends called it Never Never Land. There's no explanation for it. I wasn't dreaming. I saw everything I saw. And even to this day, I can see that beautiful grass and that light glowing through it. And the walls that are there, but they're not there. And why? Why would something like that appear? I have no idea. I mean, you can say anything you want to, because I can't argue with you, but I do know what I saw. And that was just something it's a young boy. Well, it's a weird thing to tell somebody about. And I've took a lot of laughter on account of it over the years, but it did happen. And there's one more thing I can tell you about before I get going. One more. About 2 years later, my mother, my dad had separated. She had remarried. Had a stepfather. We lived about a mile and a half from there. I was probably about 6.5-year-old, something like that. And we had about 3/4 of a mile down a dirt road, dead end road, only house on the road. And a house set one level house, but the hill dropped off behind the house, and we had a porch. The porch had like 3 or 4 foot wooden rail around it. Then it had screen. And back then, there wasn't no air conditioning, so you know all the windows was open every night. Half the doors stayed open to air the house out because it got so hot. But on the back of that porch, when you open the screen porch up, you walk down about 12 steps to get on the ground. It was a hill drop off. And about 40 foot from the house, we had about a 40 foot by 100 foot wide garden. And Mom would work the garden while the old man was working that day. Well, over a several month period, we would hear big cats, wow, like that there, cut loose. I mean, you know this. You ever heard them outline? That's what it sounded like, just like, but loud. And you'd hear them off in the woods every now and then. And the old man, he didn't like that man. He's a strong man, but he didn't believe in outdoors anything. So he didn't want to go out there and investigate. Didn't want to know anything about it. And we'd be sitting there at supper, and it'd be out of dark time we'd eat. And you hear something like that there, he'd just get up and shut the door. You know, he didn't want to hear it. But one night, we sat there and had a supper, and it cut loose. But it was 2 of them, one off to the left, one off the right. And they was out of ways, but they were loud. And then next time they done it again, they was loud, but they was same, they was closer. Then next time they was closer. So it was basically they was coming toward the house. And it was like over here, but as they got closer, they get closer and closer, closer. And the old man told my mother, you know, he says, I really wish they wouldn't do that out there. She said, well, let's go out there on the porch and see if we can see something. It was a nice, bright lit, moonlit night. Well, I didn't want to see nothing. So I got my hands holding my mama and my stepfather. I'm hanging on both of them. We go out there, and I just can't see over the railing out in the yard. So we stand there probably 3 or 4 minutes, and they bellow once or twice more. And both times, they got closer and closer. And the last time, they were just right there in front of the house in the woods there. And we stand there, and we looking like, man, we're going to see something. Sure enough, they stepped out into the field and into the garden. And whatever we had planned, it wasn't very high, but they had 4 or 5 rows, and they run like this. And they come out on the side, and they stepped out in a second or third row, turned and walked right down that garden, from one end to the other. Well, all I can tell you is, mountain lions. We're going to call them panthers, mountain lions, 2 of them. And they was bigger than a dang big dog, big suckers. But their tail was longer than the body looked like. And it looked like it had a 5-foot long tail, 4-foot long tail, and it curled at the end. And they were squishing that tail back and forth. It just almost hit the ground, tip up and hit the ground. And they started walking down that road. I guess they went about halfway when the back one stopped and turned around and looked back toward the house where we was at. We was standing up on the porch, probably wasn't 45 yards from them, but we was up inside the screen porch. He looked up there and whoa, cut loose. And buddy, out in the open like that thing was loud. Well, when it looked at us, now it was moonlight night, you'd have to see his eyes. And that thing probably weighed 125, 140 pounds, something like that. I don't know. But for the head looked like about that big. But I'm telling you, in the moonlight, his eyes looked like it was that big. 2 beautiful, like greenish yellow eyes. I mean, they wasn't red. They was greenish yellow. And they looked like they was the size of silver dollars in that moonlight, just glowing. He was looking right up at us. And he turned right around and walked on down that road with the other big cat. Both of them turned and went back off in the woods. And right out of that, we moved from there to Tampa, Florida. And I spent 7, 8 years down there off and on. And I got a few tales to tell you about there, but that's a few of the things that happened back when I was 4 or 5 years old. So that's the end of this story. And if my grandkids ever see it, well, I guess you know for sure I really was crazy. But that's all I had to tell you, so I've told it. That's the end of the story.